Clause 3A7. What this says, my brothers and sisters, and I think the ayah of Quran that you see on the right hand side at the bottom there, قُلْ إِنَّ صَلَاتِي وَنُسُكِي وَمَحْيَايَ وَمَمَاتِي لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. This ayah literally answers and explains this slide. So the concept behind this is, I have not done anything to deserve this life, these blessings, what I receive, what I have received in terms of health and wealth and family. I've not done anything. I don't think any one of us can claim that we have done anything. At the end of the day, it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who has given us this. And I am making that declaration through the statement of La ilaha illallah. The manifestation of that is that I truly and deeply, and I'm very convinced, I have the conviction that this, whatever I do, my prayers, my sacrifice, my life and my death, everything belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's not mine. I haven't done anything to deserve it. Have you? I don't think so. So we are making this declaration by this kalima. And if this does not come apparent in our kalima, in our actions, in our outside behavior, then we have not internalized this. I think that's the point that I will try to make over and over again. The statements that we are making, the statements that we read here, these are the manifestations of this kalima. Moving on. The concept of accountability, clause 3A, 8 and 9. The concept of accountability is very, very important. What was the last time that you've seen a household with no rules? We have the father, we have the children, we have the mother, and there's a rule in the house. People say, this is my house rule. When I go to school, the teacher sets some expectation on day one. He expects the assignments to be done on time. He expects to turn or be in the classroom and attend lecture on time. He expects you to be there before class starts. If you're late, this will happen. When I'm at work, what happens? I am literally bound by the rules of the organization. I cannot turn around and say, well, I'm not going to come to work tomorrow just because I don't feel like it. Or I'm going to start coming in at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. If my company decides to have hours of operation from 9 to 5, then I have to be there between 9 to 5. I challenge everyone, try to do it and see what happens. And we understand the rules everywhere that we look around. But when it comes to our lives, when it comes to who we are, and when it comes to our accountability as far as what we do in private and public, and we think we are not accountable, that's actually wrong. There is nothing around us that talks or explains or makes sense without accountability. As a matter of fact, everything around us is based on the principle of accountability. So how could we think that our lives are governed with something that is not accountable? So when you say that consider himself or herself answerable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for all his or her actions on the day of judgment, that means something. Remember when you see the lights of the cop behind you, what happens? Your heart falls, correct? And this is exactly what we are trying to talk about here. When I am in private or public and what I do and what I say and how I behave, do I have the concept of accountability in the back of my mind? Do I know that I'm going to be accountable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? If I'm dealing with somebody weak who cannot really respond back to me, how do I do? And when I'm dealing with someone who is powerful, and how do I behave with him? Do I have the concept of accountability in the back of my mind in everything and anything that we do? And then it says, make the pleasure and the displeasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the criterion of all his or her likes and dislikes. When was the last time we've done that? And that is something that we have to think about. If I want to hang out with someone, if I like this type of videos or not dislike this type of videos, or I like to do this or I like to do that, whatever I do, am I for a moment thinking, is this going to displease Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Or I'm just going to move on. So it has to be understood very well, my brothers and sisters, that the decisions that we make in life, every moment in our lives, are they based upon likings and dislikings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or they are just on the whims and desires of mine? Do I have the knowledge and have I studied to understand what pleases Allah and what displeases Allah, so that I'm going to be accountable? Because on the day of judgment, here's the point I want to try to make, my brothers and sisters. On the day of judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and when believers will reach to Him and will say that even when we were with our families, we were very careful. إِنَّنَا كُنَّنَا فِي أَهْلِنَا مُشْفِقِينَ. We were very careful even when we were within our families, in our circles. And on the contrary, the disbelievers will say, and they will have to say it, that we used to be very happy and we just did whatever we had to do, whatever our minds like, what our hearts like. We were doing whatever it takes to please ourselves. That's the criteria we're talking about, my brothers and sisters.